stock market.
5:50 KTSA News Time, 10:07. It is Friday. It is now officially the weekend because Gang of Four is here. We're going to meet the gang. We're going to kick around the big stories of the day and the week. Look over here, Cathey Meyer, former FBI agent, now middle school teacher, or maybe undercover FBI agent at the middle school. If I were the kids, I'd be wondering about that. Welcome back to Gang of Four. It's been a long time.
Good morning, Aunt Jeannie and Uncle Bill. This is my first 2012 appearance.
Yeah.
Glad to be back.
How is the school year going?
This is one of our better years. This is a group of kids that can take care of me in my old age.
Nice.
I like that.
Last year they were pulling the plug, but this year
good.
I'll extend my existence a bit.
To heck with long-term care, right?
Yeah. Cathey's here, and Doug Vair from Retama Park. Doug, good morning.
I'm so excited.
Are you?
I woke up this morning excited because, first of all, I remembered
you're
to be
on
here.
Gang of Four.
I remembered that I was going to be doing this, but this really, you know, my life right now is so filled with stuff. First of all, at Retama Park, we've got the Florida Derby coming up at the end of the month, and I really think, Jack, that the horse that I'm looking at, Union Rags, if he wins that Florida Derby, he is going to go on and win the Kentucky Derby. He's the best horse that I've seen since Barbaro, and he is trained by Barbaro's trainer. So we're really excited about that. Union Rags.
Okay.
And our business is up 30%
Great.
for the quarter. So everything is may not be golden, but it might be silver.
Hey, is your business considered recession-proof, or is it recession-affected?
No. It's funny, we're looking at the numbers for the last quarter, and we're up about 30%, and it kind of reflects the stock market. It's like when people have a little more money, they have a little more disposable income. It's interesting that we say that, and we all know that racetracks that don't have slots, at some point in the future, they're going to be the ones that get shuffled to the side, and the ones that have slots are going to stay around because the culture is changing. But it's truly an exciting time for us right now, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. You know, 18 years. Can you believe I've been in one place 18 years?
I can't believe that. That's unheard of.
Used to be 6 months, and I was, looking for another job.
I'm telling you. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you're there, and I'm glad you're here. And speaking of looking for another job, oh man, just when I learn her name.
Let's hear it.
Mileka Lincoln.
Yeah.
From Fox San Antonio.
Good morning.
Well, I mean, how much do we want to say?
Well,
you've been out about it on Facebook and stuff.
Yes, I spent the last 4 wonderful years here in San Antonio working for a really great company, and I am not parting ways with them.
Right.
But I am going to be relocating, and as soon as I'm a little superstitious.
Okay.
So until I'm officially official, I'll be keeping everyone posted on my next adventure. But it is coming up, and my last week on air with Fox San Antonio is going to be the morning show, which was my start. So I'm very excited about that. So it'll be Fox News First, March 12th through the 16th. I will be either Monica or Ernie, or Miriam or Sean.
Oh, you're the spring break fill-in.
Yes.
You're not Ernie.
Departure.
You're not Ernie. Hey, is it weird for you that guys on Facebook will just, I don't know if you've ever seen this, they'll just post, oh, you look really pretty this morning, or I really like you in that outfit. And I mean, do you know these people?
I know Jack Riccardi on Facebook and Taylor Johnson.
I don't go on Facebook and tell you that.
I only tell you
I'm sorry.
I only tell you
that. Now this is awkward, and I'm turning red again. I was not trying to say that Jack or Taylor is one of those posters, but when it comes to the people who I actually know that are my friends on Facebook, who I think are dear, wonderful viewers, and thank you for tuning in despite all of our goofiness. I don't know them.
Doesn't that just seems a little...
It's funny. It's the one thing they don't prepare you for in broadcast journalism school. So, and Facebook, social media, all of that is still very brand new in terms of this industry and making sure that you utilize it in a meaningful way. We get amazing stories. I get amazing stories from people through the contact that we're able to do.
And you're very active on there, and you post a lot, and you promote what's coming up, which I'm sure the station loves. But I see some of the stuff, guys. I feel kind of protective over her. Like,
thank you, Jack.
Who are these? How come, Jack? Nobody ever says, Jack, you look good in that button
every day.
How do you know that doesn't happen?
I think it every day. I see it on his Facebook page.
Doesn't happen?
Yes,
that might be happening all the time. I can't beat them off with a stick, let me tell you. All right, and weirdly, they're the same guys that like I don't know.
We share a lot of friends.
We do. We have the same stalkers. Where to begin this week, right? I mean, there's so much. But let's start, because I always think, heading into the weekend, it's a good idea to think about contraception. So let's
especially on a Friday.
Let's start there.
Yes.
Yesterday, the Senate defeated or tabled the amendment that had been offered that would have reinstated the religious exemption for hospitals and other employers that do not want to cover contraception and abortion products and sterilization and so forth to their employees. This battle, Doug, obviously is far from over, even though that vote was a defeat yesterday.
You know what hits me about this is that it's not about contraception. It's not about women's health. It has nothing to do with that. It's simply about a federal bureaucracy issuing a set of rules which subjugates the Congress, their ability to enact law, and it's emblematic of what this administration does. It uses anything it can to get around the rule of law. This was a set of rules issued by the Department of Health and Human Services. It's all about creating another welfare program, another entitlement, and it has nothing to do with contraception or birth control. Because
in fact, what nobody mentions is that these things are available and are widely covered. There is no one is suggesting that there is a lack of access to these things. So the real debate is over whether or not this is a right, okay, that you cannot be denied by your employer, that the government is attempting to define a new right.
Chipping away at our rights, our religious freedoms, and that's why I wake up some mornings and I just want to stick my head out the window and be Peter Finch in Network and say I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore.
All right, but this is quite a costly fight to pick, really, Mileka, in an election year, isn't it?
Yes, that's why we're having this discussion, as many that we'll be having this year.
But I mean, if you look at it from the White House point of view, why do you want to alienate all these Catholic voters and all of these, independent, middle-of-the-road people that maybe were fine with you until you did this?
Sure. I think that the White House perspective on this issue is important, but I think that the bigger picture issue, because everything is going to be, very heavily turned into a political situation at this time, but I do think that this does come down to access to health care, and I don't want to be argumentative, but there are a lot of women, and San Antonio is the perfect example of a lot of women who do not have access to contraception and who do not have access to women's wellness annual exams and things of that nature. And so I don't want to say that this is truly an issue of that people universally have access and now we're just trying to shove it down an employer's throat, that they have to absolutely make sure that it's possible, because there are so many women, just like there are so many people living in this country who do not have insurance, and there are programs that are set up that are right now being attacked that currently provide that kind of care. And there are many who go without
it.
Like
the women's health program you're talking about?
Right.
Okay.
And so...
So, Doug, what about that? If you say this is just an attempt to establish a new right and chip away at the liberty of these employers, what do you say to Mileka, who's saying, what about women who need it and can't afford it?
Well, and I'm not saying that this is even correct. Like, I'm not saying that this is what we should be doing, but I'm just trying to attack the universal issue.
But that's true. It's a bigger picture thing. And I agree with Doug at one level. I don't like the government interfering with my choice. As a private business owner, which I'm not, but I have been, I don't think the government has the right to come in and say, you will do this. Mm-hmm. But I do think that healthcare is a tremendous issue that costs all of us one way or another. And we've got to get to a point. It started in the Clinton administration, which was a colossal failure, but it was a great success in getting the conversation started. And we're just continuing that conversation.
But it is interesting.
Doug is about to implode.
No, I'm just saying, jackass, but access is not a problem. It's not a problem. Anyone can go to Planned Parenthood and get contraceptives free. Anyone can. It doesn't matter. It's out there, and they're not the only organization. It's simply a matter of of the Obama administration trying to tell religious organizations what they can and what they cannot do. And they didn't do it through the Congress. They did it through a rule of Health and Human Services, which is emblematic of what this administration does. It's just another chipping away at the rule of law, whether you go into GM and you throw out the law of contracts, you throw the bondholders under the bus, you spend $1.5 million to try to save jobs at GM. Chrysler, you bail out Chrysler, it becomes owned by an Italian corporation and the unions. It's simply another step down the road, and it has nothing to do with providing women contraception rights. Nothing.
All right, so Mileka, you're concerned about access.
Texas has...
And Doug is saying that they can get it.
I wish that were true, but
what's
unfortunately... Here in Texas,
yeah, what's
specifically,
stopping people from getting contraception?
The Lone Star State has the lowest funding for women's health programming of any state in the country.
But it's out there free for people, Mileka.
Absolutely, and they can only provide for it currently free and at no charge because they have a supply that they're able to go through right now that is not an unlimited supply, that because of huge, and we're talking millions of dollars in budget cuts that took place as a result of last year's legislative session, which everyone is feeling the impact of that. Whether you're giving away free condoms or whether you're serving coffee, everyone is feeling some kind of hit on that end. And in this particular case, Planned Parenthood faces a lot of difficulty, and I don't mean to single them out because they certainly are not the only ones who are providing contraceptive care or women's wellness exams, but they are...
Give me one person that has said, I can't get contraceptions. Name me one person that you know of.
Any 13, 15, 16, or 17-year-old girl who's sexually active in a Texas public school.
So we should provide them with contraception in order that they can do what they want to do without responsibility. Yes, you are saying that.
You asked who's not getting them, and I was simply
Name me one person. Do you know of one person by name?
It's a bigger picture than that because it's the contradiction of those actions. So by either we have to provide education, which we're not doing.
We are not doing.
We have to provide available information for available services. The poorest of the poor can get those services. You're right. They know how to work the system. They know how to get in. They know how to get there. But you're just basic level middle class, hardworking people that don't qualify for subsidized anything. They're just under that.
Bracket.
Whatever that line is.
I'm a little confused here about this discussion, if I can jump in. Oh, yes, wait, I can.
Yes.
Because this is about a mandate for employers.
Right.
So we are talking about people who have a job and wish to or think they should have this as part of their package of coverage. I don't know how we got into discussing 13-year-olds who don't work for... No, not in this case. This is a mandate to employers, Cathey.
Okay,
and the 13-year-olds don't work for the Catholic hospital or the Catholic insurance company.
There are people who do. And there are people who work in...
Okay, if you have a job...
No, for a Catholic organization...
And you believe that your 13-year-old daughter needs birth control or condoms, then you need to budget for that. It is not a right that the taxpayer has to provide or that the company has to provide. If they have a moral objection... I find it fascinating that Hillary Care preserved the moral objection clause. Hillary Care, which was so radical. Hillary Care that gave us Newt Gingrich. Hillary Care that was going to be the end of the world. Even Hillary Care said, if you're a Catholic hospital or a Catholic university or a religious institution, you do not have to go against your morals and your conscience on this issue. So this is a big step.
I agree what you're saying. I don't dispute that.
As do I. Just to be clear.
We took it to the next level.
Yes. Okay. I was trying to say the reason why we are talking about this right now is because it's election year, not because this is about women's access to health care and whether or not an employer, regardless of their religious beliefs or perspectives, should have to be able to provide all elements of a women's health needs.
It's not women's health needs. It's not.
Okay, it's unfortunate that you feel that way.
No, it's not, but it's the truth. Where does contraception, and anybody can afford to go buy a condom. Anybody
Oh my gosh,
can.
Doug, it's so sad that you feel that way because it's not the truth. There are people who are not even able to afford cereal for their children and don't want to have number 8 and 9. And don't want to have number 8 and 9.
That's a whole different
This is a straw man. This is a straw man argument if I've ever heard it.
No, we
this is a straw man
argument. We agree with both of you.
We do not think that the federal government should be mandating what a private business entity can do. Private business entity. Absolutely. We were not picking a fight with that. Where I jumped in, and maybe I shouldn't have, was when we started talking about whether or not this was truly an issue of universal access for women's health care, which, in my opinion, it is.
Maybe I wasn't clear. This mandate is not enlarging or increasing the access that you're talking about.
No, not at all.
Because it doesn't apply to the people you are talking about. So we've kind of gotten... We've kind of gotten way far afield of what we were talking about. What we were talking about...
Future thinkers. I mean, we're looking at, then she opened with, the bigger picture is.
Okay.
And this isn't what the debate is about.
But Cathey.
And very few people disagree with what you're saying.
But Cathey, it would be far different if the president went on television and said, I believe we need more federal programs, which, of course, the implication is funded by you, the taxpayers, to increase the availability of birth control pills, condoms, IUDs, etc., for young people or people who can't afford it. We'd be having a completely different debate. We wouldn't be hearing from the Catholic bishops. We wouldn't be
Yes, you would.
Well, in a different way, though. You wouldn't hear them saying.
You'd be hearing from all the same people you're hearing from right now.
You wouldn't hear them saying, as they are saying now, we might have to get out of the business of operating hospitals. We might have to get out of the business of offering any insurance to the employees of Catholic colleges and universities. Well, it may be. But my point is, it would be very different if we were proposing to expand the availability to low-income people of a product that some think should be government subsidized. Personally, I don't think it should be. But instead, what we're dealing with the mandate is whether or not a religious institution has that conscience exemption. And people should be able to put aside for a moment their position on contraception and think of themselves first as, do I believe in liberty? Do I believe in the Constitution? Do I believe that First Amendment means anything?
I couldn't agree with you more.
That's
but
important.
No one ever takes away the partner issues that get paired with contraception. Ever. No one ever can have
then the administration has found a very clever hobby horse to advance their agenda, because what you're saying then is we can't see the forest for the trees. We cannot see what this really implies.
And I think it's political too. There's no doubt that it is, because they're going to be able to use this as a club against Obama's Republican opponent and really use this straw man argument that we're hearing right now and pull the wool over people's eyes.
Doug, I don't
listen to this. People that don't listen to this don't understand.
Look, I think what we're saying is, you and I are, and I hate that this has turned into the men versus the women, but
I'm so happy finally there's two women in the room.
We can't help that we know more than you guys.
Thank you.
You and I are definitely not doubting or questioning the sincerity of what Mileka and Cathey are saying, but we are recognizing that this. It's almost like
time and place. It's not the right.
It's almost like the First Amendment is held hostage to their interest in making sure that a young woman who needs it can afford to get it, or it can be funded.
Look, it's not just my interest.
And Mileka, you're saying
for this 16-year-old's delivery at the emergency room. Because she couldn't get a condom for her boyfriend.
I'm not going to accept. I'm sorry, I don't accept that. I also don't accept. I'm not going to be.
It's not even a conversation about who's paying for it.
I'm not going to be told that if I don't go along with your social programs, I have to pay for the child that results.
But you are. She's walking into an emergency room at 9 months pregnant.
And see, this is where.
Whether you believe in it or not, you're paying for it right now.
This is where it's leading to. We are supposed to pay through our taxes for this is what you're telling me, for a 13-year-old girl to be allowed to have intercourse because they can have contraception.
No, I said you are paying. I didn't say you're supposed to. I didn't say you should do it with a smile on your face. I said right now you are paying, because she did not have access to contraception, and she didn't learn at 13 in the 6th grade what a condom was.
You're making a big leap there, though. You're saying
that currently you're not paying for their...
No, you're saying that she had the baby, or she got pregnant because she didn't have access. Do you know that there are people who get pregnant and do have the access? Do you know that there are people
and
that
just contraception doesn't work 70% of the time,
or they don't plan, or they don't anticipate, or I'm not. It's not as simple as if we don't have a program, we're going to have babies.
100% of all 13-year-old girls who are having children are not having children because 100% of them did not have access to contraception. But a vast majority of young women who are getting pregnant and still in high school getting pregnant and still in high school because they are choosing to be sexually active, regardless of what their religious background is, regardless of how much money mom and dad make, regardless of what side of town they live in.
The argument is, if you want smaller government, if you want less government spending, if you want more efficiency in the delivery of social services,
then you'd spend
am I saying this right?
Absolutely.
Meleka's saying, you're going to pay either way, Doug.
So why
it's cheaper to pay for the contraception.
The 5 cents.
Look,
than the $5.
Let me just tell you this. Every young boy and almost every young girl that goes into a public restroom can see a vending machine that has a condom in it.
Oh my goodness! What public restroom?
Women's restroom?
No
I have
kidding.
never seen a condom machine.
That is so not. Do you have them in Retama Park? You have condom machines in every single bathroom? Exactly. That's my point.
I'm probably overstating the case to make my point. It's baloney. It's BS to say that a 13-year-old girl doesn't know what a condom is or have the 50 cents to go buy one.
All right. Hold the thought. We'll come back. I lost track of the time, which I predict is going to happen a lot this morning. It's 10:28 into the 550 KTSA newsroom. All right, so Karen, I don't know if you've been aware of what's going on in here.
Anarchy.
Yeah. It's probably been hard for you to do your job because it's so noisy, but I'm trying to decide. I need your advice. The gang wants to talk about the story of the Modesto teacher, and I just feel like it would be irresponsible to let that out of the bag at this point. I don't know. I'm not sure. I might have to come in there with you if we talk about it. But listen to this, and I'll mention this to the gang too. But Karen, listen to this. According to a 2006 study, it says that what went on here between these two. This is the guy that had the student who was 15, and then when she turned 18, they moved in together. What went on, according to this 2006 study, roughly 4% of people say they have had this kind of relationship or contact with a teacher. So that's, what is that? That's like
12 million.
Isn't that like one in every class?
No.
That doesn't sound right.
No.
I don't think 4% would be reflective of one in every class.
Well, what's a class? Isn't a class 25?
Excuse me? You mean
how many are in a class?
We should default to the teacher.
How many are in a class?
Let's go with 30,
okay.
32.
So 4%, what's 4% of 32?
I'm not a math teacher.
Isn't 10%?
It's more than one, Cathey. I mean, I know that.
Okay, I've been at, let me see, 1, 2, 3. I've been at 4 schools in my 20 years.
Okay.
And of those 4 schools, one of them was a high school.
Are you living with or have you lived
Never.
with any of your students?
Don't even
Don't answer that question.
No.
That's terrible, Jack.
You know, I read these.
I'm just trying to understand this survey. I mean, this blows my mind more than the actual story does.
I think you're interpreting, I'm going to assume here, which I probably shouldn't do, that you may be interpreting the survey results differently than the actual question. I took that to mean an inappropriate relationship with a teacher,
right.
Not necessarily living in a home.
I'm not saying they all live together.
Okay.
You should never even get to inappropriate.
Is 4% inappropriate? Is not a little eyebrow raising?
I know I'm probably in a small minority here, but when I was in high school in Laredo in 1966, my best friend married our speech teacher. He was 17 and she was 21, and they married, and she simply...
Wait a minute. 17 and 21?
Right.
Wow.
The lady
teaching. I was 23 teaching 18-year-olds.
The lady speech teacher was 21. My best friend was 17.
Are they still married?
Yes. And all she had to do was, well, he became an anchor for KBC TV in Austin at 18, so he was pretty good. They simply had to move.
Nice of you not to reveal who he is.
I know.
They had to move. They had to all she had to do was move to another school district.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
So what?
So you're trying to say that you think this is totally appropriate?
No, absolutely not. I'm just not at all. Not at all. I'm just saying that it's more common than you think. I'm supporting your hypothesis that this is more common than you think.
Yeah. The part of this I have the most difficulty with was the part of them doing the interview.
Oh, consenting to sharing their story?
Do you really think, honest to God, everything else, maybe it's none of my business, but do you really think if you explain this enough,
an 18-year-old would think that.
An 18-year-old
would think that.
His motivations are clearly very
different.
The
adult is the one out.
Wouldn't you just think, if you've done something like this, I've got to run away to the other side of the world?
No, not in today's society. No, not at all.
How many people prove that wrong all the time by just continuing to open their mouth when they should crawl under a rock and hide for a couple months?
Book and reality show.
Yeah, they're thinking very different motivations for speaking to the press. I agree.
Reality show.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, I didn't think of that.
Bravo cameras will be in there in no time.
All right, well there you go.
Especially if he gets 2 more wives.
Yes, and they're both also 18.
Exactly.
And former students.
What do you think of the county judge, Guadalupe County Judge, Mike Wiggins? This week,
he needs a better
He did
photo.
not inhale, is what
he needs a better
people.
photo, is that what you said?
A better mugshot?
Yes.
We've been running that
looks
quite
like
a bit.
he's just inhaled and hasn't exhaled yet.
Right, that is exactly what it looks like.
But look, I don't know how I would look if I was in his shoes. Anyway, he says he's not going to resign after being busted with pot in his hotel room, even though the county commissioners have passed a non-binding resolution saying you've got to go. He says it's been difficult. It would be easy for me to clean out my office, but I'm not going. We asked our listeners, do you applaud that or are you appalled by that, Mileka?
I'd love to hear what your listeners thought before I weigh in, if that's okay.
I want to hear
Come on,
okay,
man.
well,
Come on.
I'm appalled.
You're not allowed to do that.
I am appalled by that.
You're appalled.
He's a pot-smoking politician, and
we have a lot of those.
We have a lot of those,
4%.
and he's allowed to do
more than 4%.
He's allowed to do what he is able to get away with
Right.
in the privacy of his home.
Right.
Because we're not going to pretend like this isn't happening
Right.
in the privacy of other homes with other politicians. But he did not get away with this.
Right.
He was caught.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows. The my foot hurts from diabetes argument, I don't really buy.
Right. How about restless leg syndrome? Would that work?
Right, RLS. Only if he was in the commercial.
Right.
And so I'm not sure, I feel like it's irresponsible for him to stay on when there may be so many other people in a position who would be better role models within that community, who could lead from a perspective. I'm not saying that this guy doesn't deserve a second chance at some point in life, but I think now the appropriate, responsible adult thing to do would be to say, I hear the voices of my fellow constituents and I step down.
Maybe there's a lot of pot smokers in Guadalupe County.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Who knows? I mean,
well, they're growing it there.
Here's the thing.
They need representation.
Here's the thing that I think.
Now, if he had used that argument, I would have a heck of a lot more respect for him.
Years from now, we're going to look back at this, and one day when marijuana is legal and we stop throwing people in jail for smoking marijuana, we're going to look back at this thing, and I'm not a proponent of legalization other than I just don't think we should throw people in jail for this. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. You talk about limited resources to prosecute people for this, and then they have this mark on their for the rest of their lives. We're going to look back on this and say, this is so silly.
I agree. But having said that, in the here and now, should he stay? Should he go? Should he stay?
I would stay.
You would stay?
Well, but you should work in the best interest of your community, and I don't believe that's the best interest of the community. I believe he's got a sense of entitlement that says, because I am who I am, I get to do what I want to do.
Let me ask you this. How many of those commissioners are getting blasted on who hit John at night? How many of them?
I don't know.
I would say probably most.
Do you know them?
No, but I'm just saying probably the majority of them go home and have a couple of bottoms up, you know, mud in your eye. Here we go.
But
so,
again,
I think that speaks to what I said, which is if you can get away with whatever it is that you're doing in the privacy of your home, that's one thing. Because we're not going to pretend, we're not going to be so naive as to think that there's a chance that all of these people in office are just wonderful people who go home and go to bed at 6 o'clock and then don't gain weight. These are not people.
That was a different discussion.
It's a totally different conversation that I just
else.
threw in there. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying he did not get away with this in the privacy of his home. And then he has colleagues and who I'm assuming are listening to their constituents who said
the voters can throw him out or they can keep him.
Well, didn't they technically almost do that by speaking to their representation and their representation passing an agreement?
But it is an elective office, so couldn't he just say,
put me up for election?
Hey, the next time the voters vote, they'll decide.
That's exactly what he should do.
And that's his right, but I think people need to get to a bigger place where it's not all about me, but it's about the good of what I represent, and that's not where he is.
I wouldn't have a problem with him saying that, by the way, but that's not what he said.
Right.
Well, I personally think that Bill Clinton raping women is much worse than this guy lighting up.
Your wife is texting again.
Okay. Well, let's check his text. This week, the Secretary of Energy, Stephen Chu, basically came out and said, yeah, gas prices are high. That's not a bug in the system, that's a feature. We know that. We don't feel it's our job to try to lower them. We're okay with it, essentially. Now, I have to say, points for honesty. This is a president who said that his energy policies would necessarily increase the cost of energy, and they have. Do any of you buy the argument that we're a better nation at $5 a gallon because it will lead us to do things, make choices, change our behaviors in ways that we have to anyway? Or are we living, as one of the Republican candidates said, in an energy-rich nation as if we were an energy-poor nation?
I think that's absolutely right. We are living that way. We have more energy here than any other country in the world. We just have to have the ability to tap it. And there's no way that you can force us as a society to go to a green energy until we have the technology and until it becomes affordable. This is typical, whether you're talking about the administration trying to force these issues down our throat, whether they're trying to force us to buy an electric car. This is just so typical. It is in lockstep with everything they're trying to do to us.
Well, then won't we find out in November whether he's right? Because if he's right, and we actually are going to have this moment where we realize, oh, $5 a gallon will make me a better person. I'll be more efficient and economical, and I'll make choices. We've got to get off this gasoline anyway. Then we'll re-elect the president and his energy secretary, right? Because in conventional thinking, don't people say, oh my God, $5 a gallon gasoline, Cathey, he'll never get re-elected with that. So what the energy secretary is saying is, no, we can get reelected with that.
I don't know what to think, because I mean I'm listening and I'm thinking, well, I just put $60 worth of gas in my car this morning, and it's not changing my behaviors, it's not changing my plans, it's not changing anything in my lifestyle. And anybody that I know, everybody says, yeah, gas is expensive, and they just go right on with their life.
What's the correlation between the increase in gas and the decrease in GDP? It's dramatic.
Well, what if we were to look at it this way? It isn't the job of the government to decide our energy future. It's the job of the government to let the marketplace decide our energy future. The government didn't decide that internal combustion engines would be what powered automobiles. When automobiles first came along, some of them were steam, some of them were electric, some of them were kerosene, some of them had coal burners. I mean, the internal combustion engine with gasoline in it just emerged, right? It wasn't chosen. Is it possible that the energy future is the one that we will just choose, and that maybe, Cathey, at $5 a gallon we won't choose it, but maybe at $7 we'll choose it?
Well, and
or who knows?
But it's the great unknown. I mean, in the metro section today, there was the whole thing about the LED lights and public spaces. But you look at the big picture of it, and we're spending all this money to save enough energy for 1,600 homes in San Antonio. Well, that's not a large percentage of energy savings to me. So I'm not sure if spending all that money to be green is worth the effort.
I just wonder how much of this, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, comes down to greediness, in that why should I pull from my resource when I can take from yours? Until I can't afford to take from yours, well then maybe I'll consider taking from mine. It's like, why should I stay home tonight and cook dinner and spend money and resources and time on cooking my own dinner when someone else is going to give me dinner either for free or at a more discounted cost? And I wonder how much of that has factored into our going elsewhere for fuel and oil resources versus using the fuel and oil resources that exist in our own backyard. I'm just wondering. I'm just posing that question.
Well, I just know this. I think I've said this on this program before. Back in the 1980s, I invested my hard-earned money in a company called American Solar King because solar power was the wave of the future, and it's coming. It's going to be here, and you better get on board. You better take advantage of this investment. That stock went from like $15 to zero about 6 months after I invested in it because solar energy was the coming thing that was going to save us all, and that was over 30 years ago.
But Doug, you made a decision with your money that was essentially a bet,
right?
And you lost your bet.
I did.
But the Obama administration is making bets with our money.
That's right.
That are not wise bets, that are not likely. You know a little bit about odds in your business. They're not playing the odds very well. We're sitting on top of shale oil. We're sitting just south of all that tar oil sands oil in Canada. We have natural gas. We're the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. Instead, Obama's talking about algae. They're giving away billions in loan guarantees to Solyndra and companies like it. We're still hearing about ethanol because every 4 years the politicians prostitute themselves in Iowa. Right. So it would be one thing for you to lose your money on a choice you made, but they're betting our money.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I'm angry that I lost that money. I'm saying that we had this same discussion over 30 years ago and we're not any further along.
The price of gasoline is not a function of it being scarce.
Yeah, it's not about supply or demand. It's one of the few things that is not in any way related to the loss of supply and demand.
We could drill for more of our own resources in this country and bring the world market prices down. Somehow people think, oh, well, if you do that, you'll never move forward into the future. Of course we will. We're not going to be using this forever, but isn't it sort of stupid and short-sighted and tyrannical to force people like Cathey to pay more than she should have to because you're trying to convince her to suddenly
But the flip side of that is I don't have to pay that. I could buy an electric car and I could do my
and you
green
go
thing.
But again,
25 miles and conk out.
We're gonna go ahead and exhaust everyone else's natural resource, and then we're gonna be the only ones who have it. I mean, am I the only one who sees this?
I don't think we're smart enough.
I don't think we're doing that. No.
I see what you're saying. But I don't think we're smart enough.
I think we are spending other people's reserves.
Right, because why should we spend ours?
Knowing we have ours.
Exactly. That's exactly what I think is happening.
I think that's a conspiracy theory.
If it was your theory, it wouldn't be.
No, I'm not saying it's not accurate. I'm not saying it's not accurate. I'm just saying that wow.
Why not take the handout? Why not take the handout so you can hold on to your own food at home?
Handout?
Well, I mean, you're right. At $5, I'm just saying 25, 50 years from now, when we are selling it to everyone else for $500 a barrel.
You're the only one that's going to be here in 50 years, so the three of us don't care.
Let's also remember that where we're buying it, we are funding our own enemies. We are funding terrorism. We just told Canada to go to hell, which is an English-speaking democracy, while we are only too happy to go and bow to the Saudis.
Yes.
So I don't think we're conspiring to become the sole proprietor of the world's remaining petroleum. I think what we are doing, it is a conspiracy, Doug, but it's a conspiracy to force people to say to their federal overlords, oh, please give us those solar cars, or please give us Chevy Volts, or mandate that we all have to buy one, because gas is $7 a gallon.
And this is what this election is about in
Buy
November.
a Chevy Volt, get a condom.
This is what this election is about. Is the federal government are we going to allow, as citizens, the federal government to tell us everything that is good for us?
Well, the only way we are is if we are economically on our knees because of the artificially inflated prices of things like energy. I mean, at some point, the American people will beg for relief, and whoever the president is at that point will be able to grant whatever he deems fit at that point. But if you want to have the choice to do what Cathey does, or invest the way Doug did, or if Mileka wants to buy a Chevy Volt, if you want to have all those choices, then you don't want the federal government artificially constraining the supply of gasoline and oil, which is what they're doing now. They're rationing it. That's the only word for this.
I have no words. That's exactly what I said. That's exactly what they're doing.
I don't believe they're doing it for the purposes of becoming some sort of James Bond villain, though, and turning around and
that's
saying,
not what she said.
we're going to sell it at $500. Didn't you say we're going to turn around and sell it to the world?
Because eventually everyone else's supply. We're talking about a natural resource that is finite. It's going to run out.
If
we don't use our own, right? Because we're not using our own.
But now we have more technology. No one knew that there was oil in the sand. No one knew there was oil in the shale 30 years ago. It was going to run out in 1973. We were going to lose all of our oil in the next 10 years. Who knows what the next technology will be?
And perhaps that is true, but in the meantime, I think that there has been a very conscious effort to hold on to what we currently have for whatever reason. Whether it's
ideology.
That's my
That is the most charitable potential interpretation of our government's policies. In other words, if you're right, that's the nicest thing you could say about them, that they're husbanding the oil. I think it's much worse than that. And I think it's crony capitalism, and it's statism, and it's we're gonna reward our friends and punish our enemies.
Well,
and by the way,
and
it will be the same with Republicans. The Republicans will have their cylinders. You can take that to the bank. You can be sure of it. As long as you give the president the power to act like a king, he is going to use your money to reward his friends and punish his enemies. We'll come back with the lightning round, 11:27 on 550 KTSA. First of all, could you ever get to that point? And could your faith be so strong that even at that moment, Cathey, you already know?
Well, I think that just the previous history of the Columbine and the shootings that followed since then, I think a lot of parents have those thoughts. Mm-hmm. What if this happens at my school? Mm-hmm. What are the, all the what ifs that come up? And I think people with exceptionally strong faith get that young kids act and react without forethought of consequences, without understanding what they're doing, and that many times it's not directed at somebody specific, that it's just a random act, as apparently this was. And that's one of those things that's in God's hands. You don't have control. And she obviously was in a place in her life where, as tragic and horrible as it is, she can move on and she can continue
to be
life.
Able to empathize with the shooter. She says in that interview, I can only imagine what he was going through.
I mean, hopefully that means that she will find the peace that she so clearly deserves as just a good woman, and as a. But I mean, hopefully for her that is as genuine and as authentic as even just hearing it for the first time as it sounds. So.
I think what's lost in this whole thing too is that these are just the worst things that any parent can imagine. As a society, this is the worst thing that we can even imagine. But there's so much negative stuff that comes out of the news, and we get depressed when we watch the news. Something inspired me a little bit last night watching this. Teen violence used to account for over 30% of all the violent crimes in the United States in the 1960s. And it has dropped so dramatically, it's down around between 4 and 6% now. So as a society, our teens are committing less crime now than they did 40 years ago. So to me, that's uplifting. Good. That's encouraging.
Good. Well, I thought we needed to end on that note because, needless to say, we had a little bit of disagreement earlier in the show. Just a little. If you missed it, no big deal.
We're not called Sweetness of 4.
No.
I like that.
We're going to let them leave separately at 15-minute intervals now. But again, thank you all for coming on. Great Gang of Four today. And Mileka, I hope you'll keep in touch with us.
Absolutely. It would be an honor. I will be back if I am still invited after today.
You're still invited. I don't know if you'll come back.
Of course.
I'll give you a ride.
Oh, thank you. I'll chip in to the $60.
And I'll go check out the bathrooms.
Yeah, you're going to have to. When I come this summer, I would like to see, yes.
We will podcast it this afternoon and the video podcast of Gang of Four by Monday at ktsa.com. It's 11:44 into the 550 KTSA newsroom.
Mix so far today with the Dow on track.